The applause hit me like a wave of static. Loud, fake, pointless. I stood backstage gripping a crystal award in one hand and a sealed envelope in the other. My name boomed from the speakers like it meant something. Like they respected me. Like any of this was real. I stepped into the lights. The floor was polished like a mirror, the air thick with catered cologne and corporate bullshit. The CEO was waiting with a smile 2 inches too wide. I shook his hand, smiled back, and gave a nod to the crowd. Everyone clapped, everyone stood, cameras flashed. I could barely see through the lights, but I could feel the eyes on me. They were all here to celebrate the platform I built, the system that closed the biggest deal in company history. $800 million over 5 years. Without it, this gala wouldn't exist. Without me, none of these suits would be here in their overpriced tuxes, sipping champagne like they earned it. I held the award high for the photos. My stomach turned. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. The envelope was still in my left hand. Thick paper, gold seal, no label. I already knew what was inside. I'd seen the draft 3 weeks ago. Termination letter, finalized, signed by Malcolm, Vivian CC'd, dated before they even booked this ballroom. I gave the speech they expected. 2 minutes, tight, full of polite gratitude and vague hope. Innovation is the heart of progress, I said, and progress doesn't happen alone. They ate it up. A few even looked proud. None of them had a clue they were clapping for a guy they'd already fired. I smiled, I nodded. I walked off stage. Vivian met me in the wings, that perfect HR smirk locked in. Beautiful speech, she said, touching my arm like we were friends. Let's catch up Monday. I handed her the envelope without a word. She blinked. Didn't expect that. I walked right past her. They thought I didn't know, that I'd be surprised, maybe even grateful. But the truth, I'd known for weeks. I just waited for them to finish digging their own grave. And tonight, they handed me the shovel. 3 weeks earlier, I was early to a leadership sync. Not unusual for me. I liked to get in, grab the whiteboard marker before anyone else started scribbling nonsense. The conference room was on the 12th floor. Glass walls, corner view, door always closed for these kinds of meetings. I stepped out of the elevator, turned the corner, and stopped. The door wasn't shut all the way. I heard Malcolm's voice first, calm, slow, fake casual, like he was talking about golf or lunch reservations. We'll give him the award, let him have his night, then we move forward cleanly, Vivian replied, cold. You sure the paperwork's airtight? Already signed, just needs the right timing. They didn't say my name. They didn't have to. I didn't move, didn't clear my throat, didn't push the door open. I just stood there, my back straight, my hand still on the strap of my laptop bag. My gut dropped like I'd swallowed lead. I wasn't even angry yet. I was still trying to register that I was hearing my own funeral plans from people I'd gone to war for. Vivian kept talking. We'll package it, strategic restructuring, positive spin, no drama. Good, Malcolm said. Last thing we need is him turning it into a spectacle. Like I was a problem to contain. Like I was some intern they could ghost. I backed away slowly, like someone had just pulled a gun. Walked down the hall to the end of the row, past the exposed beams and glass railing, and stared out the floor-to-ceiling window. 32 floors above downtown Raleigh. The city spread out beneath me like a circuit board. All that potential, all that glass and steel I thought I was building toward. It felt like a joke now. I didn't sit in that meeting. I didn't say a word to either of them. I just rode the elevator back down, walked across the street to the coffee shop we all used, and stared into a cup of black coffee I couldn't taste. I sat at my desk an hour later, looking out the window again, running it over and over in my head. Every time I thought about Vivian's voice, my jaw clenched. The way she said, no drama, like I was some hothead techie they needed to diffuse. I wasn't the problem. They were just too spineless to face what I'd built. That's when something flipped. I stopped defending them in my head, stopped giving them the benefit of the doubt. That day, I stopped being loyal. I started listening instead, started watching, started planning. They thought I'd nod through my last weeks and walk out like a good little engineer. But I don't forget betrayal, and I never walk out empty-handed. The next morning, I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my cell buzzed. Direct line, no assistant. It was the CIO from Northline, our biggest client. I stepped into the stairwell to answer. Concrete walls, no ears. "We're in," he said, skipping the small talk. "But only if you lead it, personally." My brain went still for a second. $800 million over 5 years. And I wasn't just the architect. I was the condition. I didn't ask why. I knew. I was the one who pitched them. Solved the integration riddle they'd been stuck on for a year. Stayed up 2 nights straight rewriting modules until it ran clean. They didn't care about titles. They wanted results. And I was the only one delivering. I hung up. Walked straight to Malcolm's office. His door was open. It usually wasn't. Vivian was already in the chair beside him, tablet in hand, fake smiling like always. I didn't sit. "Northline's in?" They both perked up. "But only if I lead it. Full platform build. 5-year scope." Malcolm blinked. "They said that?" "Word for word. I'm non-negotiable." Vivian tilted her head like a curious cat. "And they put that in writing?" I dropped the email on his desk. "They will." Malcolm rubbed his chin like he was pretending to think. "That's a major ask. Operationally, no," I cut in. "This isn't an ask. This is the deal. I lead it. I pick the team. I get full access to the current stack and deployment timelines. If not, they walk." Vivian glanced at him, and something passed between them. Not panic, not even frustration, just calculation. Like they'd been ready for me to walk in with a win and already had the follow-up script rehearsed. Malcolm nodded slow. "Okay, let's make it official." I should have felt proud. That kind of deal should have had us popping champagne and locking in bonuses. Instead, the air in that room dropped 10 degrees. They weren't celebrating. They were adjusting. Vivian spoke first. "We'll schedule the rollout kickoff. We'll make sure you have what you need." That's when I saw it. The smile that didn't reach her eyes. The delay in Malcolm's handshake. The stiffness in their posture. They were going to use me to land the deal, then cut me loose. So I made my own adjustment. I threw myself into the build. Spent 14-hour days assembling the tech stack, mapping out the long-term architecture, managing 2 dev teams across time zones. I gave them everything they wanted: speed, stability, innovation. But I didn't stop there. After hours, I started something else. I pulled an old laptop from storage, one not linked to company credentials, not logged into their VPN. While I built their golden goose, I started drafting the blueprint for something cleaner, smarter, mine. I didn't tell anyone, not even David, and back then, I still thought he had my back. Vivian kept swinging by my desk with check-ins. Malcolm started CCing me on fewer emails. They were waiting for the rollout to hit a milestone, and then they'd pull the trigger. They thought I didn't know, but I'd already started digging my exit tunnel, and I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I worked late that night, lights off, blinds shut, just the glow of my monitor and the hum of a city that never looked back. At midnight, I pulled the drawer open and slid the old laptop out. Black, unmarked, no asset tag. I hadn't touched it in over a year. I wiped the dust off with my sleeve and powered it on. No VPN, no admin tools, nothing traceable, just raw OS and open code. I wasn't rebuilding their system. I was making my own. I called it Project Aegis, not a weapon, a shield, something built to defend, not attack, something that could survive outside their walls and outside their rules. I didn't copy a single line of company code. I rewrote it all. Better, smarter, faster. Stripped out the clutter, designed it to scale on its own. No exec approvals, no legal reviews, just clean architecture and full control. The first thing I embedded was a silent audit log. Nothing fancy, just deep enough to capture access attempts, exports, admin moves. I wasn't paranoid, I was practical. Because Vivian was already sniffing. The day before, I caught her hovering behind an intern's desk, squinting at performance dashboards like she knew what she was looking at. The next morning, she accidentally requested a dev-level report, full deployment telemetry, charts, exports, retention cycles. Not something HR needed. I flagged it. She didn't know I'd seen the logs. The same week, Malcolm started asking vague questions in meetings. How's uptime trending? Are we seeing performance dips? Questions he hadn't cared about in months. He was stalling, waiting for the handoff moment, when the system would be stable enough to function without me. I let them think it was almost ready. But every change they made, every dashboard they loaded, every report they pulled, Aegis logged it, quietly, cleanly, like a record keeper waiting for Judgment Day. I kept my real files off their servers, uploaded backups to a private repo with no identifying metadata. I didn't need help. I didn't want help. Anyone close to me was a liability now. Even David. He asked once, "What are you working on lately? You've been ghosting everyone." I smiled like nothing was wrong. "Just heads down on Northline. Big lift." He nodded, but his eyes darted, like he knew I wasn't saying everything. I didn't care. By then, I'd stopped looking for allies. I worked in silence, coded on the train, synced between meetings, slept 4 hours a night max. Every line I wrote brought me closer to control. Vivian tried again the following Friday. "We're compiling system documentation," she said casually. "Would be helpful to get your architecture notes." I stared at her. "You need something for legal?" She blinked. "No, just for internal visibility." "Right." I handed her a sanitized summary, one that looked polished but was useless without the real logic behind it. She smiled like she'd gotten what she wanted. She hadn't. Malcolm was worse. He didn't ask anything directly. Just started copying a new guy, Steven, on every one of our sprint updates. Some junior engineer who'd never worked on back-end architecture in his life. A soft replacement, quiet handover. I welcomed it. The more they thought I was winding down, the less they'd notice what I was building on the side. By the end of that month, Aegis was complete, fully independent, fully operational, fully mine. They still thought they were preparing to push me out. But I wasn't in their house anymore. I'd already moved out and changed the locks behind me. 2 days after Aegis went live, Malcolm called a strategy session. Execs, team leads, finance, marketing, all packed into the 6th floor conference room like it was some kind of summit. I walked in ready to present. Had my charts, architecture maps, rollout plan. My platform had already passed the first performance threshold. Clean, fast, stable. I expected at least 10 minutes on the agenda. Malcolm opened the meeting with a slide titled Q4 Market Positioning. Northline wasn't even mentioned until slide 5. My system got a single bullet point under operational efficiency gains. No detail, no demo, just a line on a budget summary. He moved past it in 5 seconds like it was a footnote. I raised a hand. "Can we pull up the rollout deck?" Malcolm didn't even look at me. He just held up a single finger, that corporate hush gesture that tells you everything about where you stand. One finger. That's all it took to shut down 2 years of work. Vivian leaned in from across the table, all professional warmth. "We're reframing around client perception. It's important to lead with vision, not code." "I built the vision," I said. "You're rolling out my platform. Without it, there is no—" She cut me off with a tight smile. "You're incredibly tactical. But what we need now is strategic leadership. Long-term thinking." Tactical. I heard it loud and clear. That was code for, "Stay in your lane, nerd." No one said anything. Just scribbles, quiet keystrokes, a few people shifting in their seats. I sat through the rest of the meeting without saying another word. Back at my desk, I stared at the edge of my monitor until the office lights went down. Then I picked up my phone and texted David. "Me. Coffee?" "Nothing." I waited 30 minutes, no reply. Next morning, I got to the cafe early. Picked up 2 black coffees, just like always. Grabbed the corner booth. Sat by the window with both drinks, waiting. 7:45, then 8, then 8:15. No David. 9:03, my phone buzzed. David. I can't take sides. That one hit harder than any of Vivian's bullshit. David and I had built half the system architecture together. He was there the night we solved the back-end sync issue at 2 in the morning, eating vending machine chips and laughing like idiots. I had his back when his code blew up in production last year. I covered for him, fought for him, and now, can't take sides. No loyalty, no guts, just another suit watching from the safe side of the glass. I didn't reply, just deleted the thread and tossed his coffee in the trash. Back upstairs, I passed Vivian in the hallway. She didn't even blink, just kept walking like I was air. Malcolm walked past me later that afternoon, paused. "Thanks for the notes this morning," he said, like we were still on the same team. I gave him a nod. That was it. Because I'd already stopped speaking their language, they thought I was being quiet, but I was just done wasting words. 3 days after that meeting, I was eating lunch at my desk when the email hit. Subject line, final exit package, confidential, from HR, sent to my personal inbox. I opened it, thinking maybe it was a misrouted comp update. Nope, it was a full termination packet. Digital NDA, 2-month severance, end date listed right there in bold, exactly 1 week after the gala. They hadn't even waited for the rollout to finish. I stared at the screen for a long minute. Not because I was shocked, I wasn't. I'd known this was coming, but seeing it laid out, like a receipt for my own erasure, that still landed. I stood up, walked straight to the HR floor, and asked for Vivian. She wasn't there, of course not. A junior staffer came out, maybe 24, fresh out of school, still using Circleback like it meant something. She saw my name on the sign-in, and her eyes went wide. Hang on. She opened her laptop, clicked around like she could undo the truth. This wasn't supposed to be sent yet. So it was supposed to be sent. She froze. I'm not supposed to say, "Don't worry, you just did." I walked out before she could keep digging that hole. Back in my office, I closed the blinds and sat in the dark. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, no rage. Just that cold clarity I'd been carrying since the hallway. They planned to cut me loose after the rollout. Smile for the camera, hand me an award, clap like I mattered, then hit delete. They wanted the illusion. That's all the gala was. Applause first, termination second. I opened Aegis. The platform was fully functional, live, and clean. But I'd left one piece untouched, the core logic, the part that defined ownership, the deep structure that determined who held control when the system deployed externally. I rewrote it that night, line by line, clause by clause. From that moment forward, Aegis didn't own anything I'd built. Not legally, not structurally, not digitally. See, Aegis thought they had everything. They thought they'd smile, shake my hand, boot me out, and keep printing money off my work. But they never read the code. They didn't know the license module tied to independent oversight. They didn't know the fail-safe activation built into the deployment chain. They didn't even know the client contract linked to my credentials through a silent verification hook. They just clapped and nodded and ignored every technical email I sent them in the last 2 weeks. That night, I backed up the entire platform, encrypted it, and stored it outside their reach. Then, I cleaned my personal files off their servers, bit by bit. No big deletions. Just slow, steady evaporation. The next morning, Vivian passed me in the break room and said, "Big week coming up." I smiled. Huge. They still thought I was playing along, but by then, I wasn't even in the same game. Later that same afternoon, I opened the contract binder, Northline's master services agreement, all 73 pages of legal ego and corporate fluff. Buried right there in the middle, quiet and technical, was Clause 17B. Deployment license and third-party system access contingent upon continued oversight from original lead systems architect. That was me, no name, just a title. But everyone in that room knew who architected the platform. Malcolm had skimmed it during the call. Vivian had flagged the fees, not the structure. They were too busy grinning at the dollar signs to read the details. And that clause? That was the lock. I drafted a soft email to the client's CIO. Not dramatic, not desperate. Just a friendly reminder about the original license terms and deployment requirements. Specifically Clause 17B, RE, Ongoing Systems Oversight. He replied in 6 minutes. Crystal clear, we want you leading, no exceptions. I stared at that reply for a full minute, then archived it. I didn't forward it, didn't flag it, didn't mention it in any status updates. I didn't need to. They thought they controlled the deal. They didn't even own the key. That night, I sat in my apartment with Aegis on one screen and the final deployment version of the Aegis platform on another, side by side, mirror images. Except one had holes, the other had steel. I updated my copy, synced everything, no bugs, no flags. I was careful, not because I was afraid, but because I was exact. The platform they were about to launch was technically operational, but the minute they triggered the license handover without me at the helm, the system would flag it, and the failsafe would engage. Not a meltdown, not sabotage, just a clean, factual, documented record of violations, sent to the 3 parties who mattered, the SEC, Northline's compliance team, and a journalist I trusted. I didn't build it to destroy, I built it to protect, because they weren't going to erase me and walk away clean. The detonation didn't need noise. It needed timing. I started clearing my personal calendar, deleted photos from my desk, exported my contacts. Malcolm called a prep meeting that Friday, asked everyone to bring your A game for next week. Vivian winked at me like we were still playing dress up. You ready for your big night? I smiled. Always. That weekend, I scrubbed my version again, checked for gaps, ran the license cascade 3 times. Flawless. No one could claim ignorance. Not anymore. Monday, I showed up in a black suit, not to fit in, just to look sharp when the cameras rolled. They thought the gala was the victory lap. They didn't realize the race had already ended, and they weren't the ones crossing the finish line. The ballroom was gold-lit and loud, suits packed tight, champagne flowing, corporate backpats flying across every table, the kind of event they throw to feel important, not to honor the people who actually built something. I walked in alone. No family, no guests, no distractions. Just me in a tailored black suit, with my phone in one pocket and every single access key cleared from my work laptop the night before. Vivian met me at the entrance to the stage, perfect teeth shining under too much lip gloss. She handed me the envelope with both hands like it was a sacred scroll. You deserve this, she said. I smiled back, sharp and empty. Thanks. My name hit the speaker system right on cue. Applause followed, already half standing before I reached the steps. Cameras ready, lights hot. The CEO extended the award, crystal polished to death, and shook my hand with the same grip he probably used to sign my termination. I took the mic. I held the crowd for a second, then said exactly what they expected. Innovation isn't just invention, it's foresight, and knowing when to let go. Polite laughter, big applause. A few people even stood again. The cameras flashed like lightning across the front row. I nodded once and walked off stage. The applause kept going a few seconds too long. Vivian clapped like it was a performance she helped direct. Malcolm stood stiffly, not clapping, just watching. Maybe he knew. Maybe he didn't. But it didn't matter. By the time I reached the hallway, the shell swap was already complete. Aegis was no longer running my system. It was running a copy, hollow, half-wired, barely held together. All back-end connections were rerouted through Aegis. The real platform lived elsewhere, owned by me. The trigger was in motion. They thought I was still smiling because I'd accepted my place. But the truth was simpler. I didn't need the stage. I just needed the moment they thought they'd won. At 10:07 the next morning, the failsafe tripped. I was at home, still in sweats, sitting on the couch with my laptop open and a mug of black coffee gone cold beside me. No calendar invites, no morning stand-up. I was already scrubbed from the system. The Aegis dashboard lit up in real time. Unauthorized access detected. License agreement breach logged. Clause 17B violation confirmed. They'd tried to copy the platform. Full clone attempt, including back-end workflows and system keys. Probably figured I was out of the building, so it was safe to move the engine off my rails. They were wrong. Aegis didn't just block them, it documented everything. Every login attempt, every credential mismatch, every access route they weren't authorized to use. It compiled the entire incident into a single, time-stamped, cross-referenced report. No emotion, just facts. The second it finished, it launched the cascade. Email 1, SEC enforcement tip line. Full package attached. Email 2, Northline's compliance lead, subject, contract violation and licensing breach. Email 3, a journalist I knew from my college days, who'd covered tech fraud with a baseball bat, not a pen. By 11:30, my phone buzzed, the journalist. Just got it, cross-checking, this is big. At 12:02, Northline's legal team pulled the plug. At 12:47, the CIO called Malcolm. No pleasantries, just 3 words. This deal's dead. By 1 p.m., Aegis stock started to bleed. At 1:42, the board filed an internal investigation. At 3:18, someone inside posted the first leak on a startup gossip forum. Aegis fumbled an 8-figure platform, breach, exec names incoming. By 5:20, the stock had dropped 39%. Trading froze twice. At 6:05, Malcolm's resignation hit the wire. Stepping down to explore new opportunities. Right. Vivian never made a statement. She didn't have to. Her Slack status changed to away sometime around 2 p.m. It never came back. She went dark, deleted LinkedIn, pulled her Instagram, full digital blackout. And just like that, Elixis collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. I didn't celebrate. I didn't crack a beer or dance around my living room. I just watched the feed, quiet, focused, detached. People texted, called, screenshotted tweets, sent me articles. One guy even messaged me on Signal. Did you know this would happen? I didn't reply because they didn't need an answer. The truth was already out. 3 days later, the headline hit the tech feeds. Navax launches new platform built by former Elixis engineer. My name was right there in the first line, not hidden in footnotes, not watered down with team contributions, just me, the work, the truth. No Malcolm, no Vivian, no PR rewrite. Athena Insight. That's what we named it. Leaner than the original, smarter, modular. It went live with 3 clients in 6 weeks. Not because of hype, because it worked. Because we didn't chase press. We delivered. I built it with a team that gave a damn. Real engineers, real product leads. No title snobs. Nobody in my way. The first dev I hired asked, "What's the one rule?" I answered without thinking, "Clause 1, I own it. Simple, locked in, non-negotiable." On launch day, I got a voicemail. Unknown number, female voice. "Hey, it's Vivian. We should talk." I didn't delete it. I saved it. But I never replied. This wasn't revenge. I wasn't chasing payback or some dramatic showdown. That wasn't the point. I didn't torch the place. I just walked out with the blueprint and left them with the drywall. That's the thing nobody tells you. Walking away isn't weakness. It's control. Every system I build now starts with the same foundation. Not just security, not just efficiency, ownership. Because the strongest move I ever made wasn't staying to fight. It was making damn sure they couldn't follow.